think this particular session was really conceived because we hear a lot of our teachers having this heart cry when we encounter students with different development or students who have developmental differences, and we really do not know how we can provide a more conducive and a meaningful environment for them to learn. That's why we are here gathered today to understand a little bit more really from the students' perspective. That's why we have about four students who will be here to share their real life experience as a student going through the JC curriculum and sharing with us their struggles, meaningful moments, and things that could have helped them in their development and things that were not so positive. So later on, we'll hear from them. But I would really like to invite us to welcome our moderator for today, Dr. Vivian Young. She's the co-founder of from Uncommon Minds. Maybe I'll just share some things about Dr. Young. Dr. Young is actually a registered educational and child psychologist and the founder of Bloom Child Psychology. She graduated from UC Berkeley with a psychology degree in 2002, obtained a doctorate at UCL in 2011. Like us, she's actually a teacher. She started her civil service career with MOE in 2002, teaching at primary school before posting to the MOE Psychological Service branch. Over the years, Dr. Young has worked with diverse caseload of students with developmental differences, for example, autism, dyslexia, ADHD, selective mutism, anxiety, genetic disorders, and other very complex needs. She served in MOE for 14 years before starting her own practice in 2019. She focused on direct work with children and families. In her previous role as Master Educational Psychologist in MOE, she led in various projects and initiatives related to special needs support in school. Okay, that's who Dr. Young is. She will be moderating for us today. I would just so like to introduce our panelists who will be sharing with us, James, Emily, Ray, and Kai. James was the young gentleman, I think, who was asking for the music, who was the pianist just now, right? If you know, later you could let James know. Okay, so now I'll just hand the time over to Dr. Young. Dr. Young, please.
Hi everyone. Very good morning to all of you. Yes, so actually today's session is not so much about me. It's really about our four special guests that are here with us today. So maybe just a little bit of background, as was Robin mentioned earlier, I'm the co-founder of Uncommon Minds. The other co-founder is also here with us today. Her name is Pui Tin. So Pui Tin and I actually were secondary school mates. Yeah. So the idea came about because this is an area that we is very close to both of our hearts. We both have family members who are neurodivergent, and we've always felt very strongly about that we need to raise awareness and we need to try to reduce stigma for people who learn, think, or behave differently from the rest of us, right? So I think when we first embarked on this journey in 2022, we were actually very uncertain whether or not, will there be people who are willing to share their stories, because I guess, as an Asian society, there's still a degree of stigma and so on. But I have to say, in the past 2 years, we have been really grateful and pleasantly surprised at the number of people who really share our passion for raising awareness. And so we really want to thank our four ambassadors. They're all busy, working and students, and they all have agreed to come and to spend the morning with us today to share their personal experiences. So we have got Ray. Ray is a student currently at Nanyang Poly. He's actually a future teacher to be as well. He's currently on MOE sponsorship, and he's doing Chinese studies. So he's going to be a future Chinese teacher. And Ray is on the autism spectrum. We have got Emily. Emily is a nurse, and you'll hear more from them later. Of course, I'll be asking them questions. So this is just a brief introduction. And Emily has got dyslexia, so she'll share her perspectives. We have got James. James is a civil servant. He's also a recipient of the Goh Chok Tong Enable Award. and James is also on the spectrum. And then last but definitely not least, we've got Kai. Kai is studying mass communications currently at NTU, and Kai is also a professional magician. Okay, so all of them have got very special talents, and so we'll hear from them. I will be posing some questions to them and getting them to respond. So I think the first question is really getting them to share about their school experiences. So, what were some of the challenges that they experienced when they were students in school, and how did these challenges affect them? So maybe I could invite Emily to start first. Emily?
Mm. Hi everyone, good morning. I'm Emily. Maybe just to share a little bit more about myself. Currently, I'm a senior staff nurse at Alexandra Hospital, but I'm also currently pursuing a master's in public health at NUS. So, I was actually diagnosed with dyslexia at Sec 1 because all throughout primary school, I was really struggling a lot with my studies, and I felt like I was always lacking behind everyone else, and I couldn't understand why. So, um, I think the initial part before being diagnosed with dyslexia was really difficult for me because I was studying in ways that was not uh, to my best learning, abilities. So it was really challenging. And although I really put in the time and effort studying after school and on weekends, I still was not producing the same results as everyone else, which made me feel um very discouraged. But then I think later on, in secondary school, when I was finally diagnosed, I was able to get the support and help that I needed, which was very enlightening to me because it felt like, suddenly a light bulb went off. And I was like, oh, this is why I'm not, succeeding well in school and my academic studies. So, um, the Dyslexia Association of Singapore really helped me and taught me the ways that I learned best in, which is like mind mapping and through video, audio learning. I think that really helped me, and that's when I really um, you know, became the best version of myself. So from then, I went from NA to Express, and then from Express, I went on to Poly and then uni, and now I'm doing my master's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Emily, for sharing that inspiring journey. So, I think I'll get Kai to go next because Kai also has dyslexia as well as ADHD. Kai?
Hi everyone. Nice to meet all of you. I definitely had a fair share of struggles when I was in my schooling days. I think quite similar to what Emily shared about being really struggling academically in school. So I think for me, one of the things that I struggled with, um, you know, definitely in secondary school and GC sometimes was about how I felt like sometimes I was putting in maybe the same amount of effort or even a bit more than my friends, but the results that were coming out seemed to be always very different. Like I wouldn't be able to score well either way. Yeah, and then I slowly I think from this also I slowly started to realize that I couldn't really hold myself to the same standard as well, which maybe I'll share a bit more of that later on. But yeah, I think that definitely at the start struggling with like kind of like feeling like I was lacking behind with my peers, and also sometimes struggling with how my peers would not be able to understand the conditions that I have. So I think I'm one of those people that have extra time during exams, and yeah, I think for other students out there, they think that all these people are like very lucky, like oh they get extra time. Sometimes it's a bit of like jealousy embedded. So yeah, so I think from a very surface level, even for other students when they don't understand what learning disabilities are and stuff like that, then yeah, they might feel like a bit even a bit jealous and stuff. So then it becomes a bit isolating in a sense sometimes. Yeah. So these are definitely some of the struggles I struggle with, and definitely some of the stereotypes along the way, which were stuff like when people kind of assume that just because you have learning disabilities, also you wouldn't be doing well in your studies. And there are definitely certain stereotypes with people kind of like taking pills to do work and stuff like that. So definitely faced people who didn't understand some of these things very well, and then just kind of assume that either this person was being maybe a bit lazy, or this person was being a bit trying to like use some cheat code to do better in their exams as well. Yeah, so definitely there were the points when these were challenges for me in school.
Yeah. Thanks, Kai, for sharing. Yeah, so I think we're hearing some common themes about, maybe not performing as well as they would like despite putting in great effort, and also the idea of peer perceptions as well. You touched on like having extra time. People think that, oh, you're lucky, or maybe the perception of being lazy and not putting in as much effort as the rest. Maybe I'll get James to go next to share about some of the challenges you face in school.
Hey everyone, so I'm James. I'll also give a more detailed introduction of myself. So as pointed out, I'm currently a civil servant. I'm working for the Ministry of Social and Family Development as an HR manager under the ambit of the SG Enable Public Service Career Placement Program. And I have a diploma in mass communication from Ngee Ann Polytechnic. And I am currently doing a part-time Bachelor's of General Study program at SUSS, Singapore University of Social Sciences. But I'll be deferring that closer to the end of the year because I received direct admission to the Masters of Arts in Irish Traditional Music in Ireland. It'll be starting in September.
Congrats.
Thank you very much. So I think the main struggle was bullying for me. As a person with autism, I struggled with my emotional regulation, and I also had a lot of behavioral issues when I was growing up. So it was very difficult for me to understand myself and why I was being treated this way. And in general, when you talk about social issues, right, children would tend to mark people out, especially if they are different in their beliefs, in the way that they behave, in the friends that they have, and the kinds of interests that they have. Peer pressure was definitely an issue as well. And the teachers, I believe they work hard, but I think that they had issues handling me as an individual, and they could only do so much, not least because I was late diagnosed. So in 2017, after seeing about autism on the television, and actually learning more about it and dispelling some of my misconceptions, I facilitated the process to become diagnosed. And that really started the process. So within the span of 6 years, I went through an accelerated crash course on how to move forward in my life. And so I got my first full-time job when I was 28, and then I got into poly again, doing a specialist diploma. And when COVID turned up in 2020, I couldn't go to Ireland. I actually was admitted in 2019, so I signed up for some extra courses in SUSS to prepare myself. So step by step to this year, and this year I applied again, and I will be admitted for the autumn semester this year.
Great. Thank you so much, James. I think we're all very happy for you. I think the photo of it actually shows James here holding the instrument that you play, right? Yeah. Okay, great. So, James, thanks for highlighting the issue of bullying as well. I think we'll be delving more into it later, definitely. But last but not least, maybe Ray, would you like to share with us some of the challenges you faced in school?
Okay, hi everyone. So I'm Ray, and I'm in my final year in the Ngee Ann Polytechnic Diploma in Chinese Studies. And as previously mentioned, I'm also on MOE's Chinese language teacher training sponsorship, and I will be going for training at NIE sometime in late August to September. But I would say that for the challenges I experienced in school, well, it's actually different from what the other people, the other ambassadors who shared just now, in that I actually did not face much difficulty in academics in terms of results, but it's more of the social aspect where I face more challenges. Because in secondary school until now, I found it quite difficult to be part of a clique or a social circle. And in Polytechnic, it became more challenging because I realized that I was like going around from place to place in school alone. Well, I did previously hang out with like two people, two classmates outside of class, but because of some unfortunate like circumstances, there were actually people who were uncomfortable with my presence, so we actually stopped hanging out afterwards. So I actually felt quite inferior. The challenges I experienced from secondary school until now have made me feel quite down sometimes. And I sometimes will feel that my social life has been quite unfortunate. But if for academics, actually in Polytechnic, I also faced challenges in the academic front, whereby because of group assignments in school, where maybe because I didn't like read other people, I don't really read other people quite well or something like that. So I lacked in the contribution as well as having passive attitude in the group, and it often led me to peer evaluation. So unfortunately, I'm feeling like the pinch of the cumulative GPA already, because it has been like difficult to pull up. Well, it has been difficult to pull up despite the improvement to my semestral GPA last semester.
Yes, yes. Thanks so much, Ray. And I think Ray made a very good point, and highlighting really the diversity that we have within neurodiversity, right? So we only have 4 ambassadors here, but already you can see that there are some differences in terms of their experiences. And I think you will see the same with your students as well. Among your students, you might have students with different conditions and different kind of learning differences, and their experiences would vary also. So just to make the point that, I think the 4 of them are here today to really share about their personal experiences, but it may or may not apply to the students that you're teaching, but we hope that you can take away something useful from there as well. Okay, so the second question that I'm going to ask our ambassadors is, what are some of the misconceptions or misunderstandings that people have had about you or about your condition? Maybe I'll get Kai to go first, because Kai, I think you alluded to a bit of this just now. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah, I think definitely some of the stereotypes and misunderstandings I've had were, like I think there's one memorable incident I have, but it's not in JC. It was actually outside. And this was in preparation for me going to national service. So I mean, it was around that time of JC. But I actually went to see a psychiatrist because it was part of a mandatory kind of a checkup. So I'm not exactly sure who this person is. I didn't really take down their name or anything. But I just know that I had to, as part of the procedure to determine my PES status and stuff like that, I actually had to go and check, just go and to have a chit chat with one of the psychiatrists. And then I remember like they asked me to bring like my results from school and stuff like that. So that period of time was like, about my preliminary exams in JC. And by the time I was doing a lot better than I was in like JC1. So it's like near the end of JC2 already. So I just showed him, showed my O-level results and stuff. So, and the person said like, oh, you did so well in school, it means you don't have these learning disabilities. And then I was like, huh? I was like, wait, what do you mean? So, and then we actually had to kind of like, luckily I was with my dad also, and then we had to like sort of try to explain to this person like what learning disabilities are. So I was very surprised, even someone in like the sort of like medical profession, it's not even really like very well educated about such things. Yeah, so I mean, I think also the point is also like that. That I've come to realize is that for a lot of people, the turning point into which you can sort of like gain some kind of mastery over to your learning disabilities can come in like many different junctures. So for me, I was quite lucky that like by JC2, like I was able to cope a lot better with studies as well. But it really can come at like different times when people start to maybe get a better hang of how they can cope and strategies that they can employ. So I think that's definitely one sort of like stereotype that and yeah, something that I face, which I felt like wow, like okay, like this is quite real that oh people actually really don't understand. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So that's just one incident.
yes, thanks for that. And I think you made a good point also about the fact that, many of you would develop some coping strategies over time, right? But when that happens will differ from individual to individual. And later we'll also get you guys to share maybe what were the coping strategies, that were helpful so that the teachers could also understand more about that. Maybe can I ask James to also share with us, what are some of the misconceptions or misunderstanding that people have about you or about autism?
Where do I start? Oh man.
Too many.
Um, um, well, I think the first thing I would say is that I think one would be that all people with autism are loners or they don't like socializing. That is, I think, categorically untrue. We do socialize. If you have ever met a group of enthusiasts talking about trains, a group of enthusiasts talking about some very interesting hobby, at least amongst the group of people who are interested in the same thing, they could talk for hours on that single topic. So the idea that people of autism are loners or they're introverts, they're all introverts, or they're unsociable is not true. People with autism socialize in their own way, and most people with autism have special interests. And so, if you look at the ARC or Autism Resource Center, they have efforts to bring people together on a common interest. So they have a sports interest group for youth with autism to join together playing badminton, soccer, things like that, football, things like that. The other thing is that people with autism are, I don't know, pautokias, or they are informers, or they like to snitch on other people. I think the more important thing that we should think about is how morally minded and that many people with autism are, and how we like to do the right thing. I think Greta Thunberg is a stark reminder to all of us that peeling away the controversy and the edginess surrounding her public persona, that she articulates with the facts of one of the most important things of our world today, which is climate change. And she says, why are you all dealing with the politics? Why are you all dealing with this human drama that is actually distracting us from the main goal, which is that the world should come together. Obviously, it's a tough thing. It is a very political situation, and it's insufficient for one person to deal with it. But I think that if we peel all of this away and realize that she has a point, and many people with autism who point out the issues in our world, the issues in the things that they see in their environment, and especially in school, should be taken seriously. And I think
Yes.
that teachers should facilitate in helping our special ones realize that a lot of things are out of our control, and to suggest more sustainable ways to channel their burning desire to do the right thing.
Yes, I think James, you highlighted two very, very real kind of, and their strengths as well, that we often see. So the first one is that, people with autism are loners, but actually in my experience also, the vast majority of them, especially when they're young, they really, really want to have friends. They just don't really know how to. So the social skills part. And then sometimes when they get older, they may appear like they don't want friends, but oftentimes it's because of the kind of peer rejection that they've faced along the way, the bullying experiences, which have made some of them a little bit jaded and discouraged as well. And the second thing, which I've also noticed is that you're not afraid to stand up for what you think is right? So that definitely is one of the strengths. Ray, would you like to add on as well some of the misconceptions?
Yeah, sure. So just adding to what James previously mentioned, actually, actually for persons with autism, we socialize a bit more differently. But I would just like to add on that actually there's also a lot of common perceptions of persons with autism that they make a lot of like weird and repetitive actions and behaviors like flapping of hands, rocking their bodies, and so on. But autism is in fact a spectrum on its own because there are actually many with mild symptoms or are asymptomatic, but others are also so severe that they may have to rely on medication as well. Then there are also a lot of persons with mild or no symptoms, like me. They actually are as capable as neurotypical people, but there are also others who have challenges being independent as well. And not just autism, actually. There are also many other persons with special needs who also became successful in life, like Temple Grandin, Albert Einstein, Bill Gates, Jamie Oliver, who has dyslexia, and so on. And I would just like to end off by saying there is actually a Chinese saying known as 一竿子打翻一船人. I feel that we should not rob persons with special needs off the boat just because of their atypical behaviors or looks, or because it's different from the majority. Because, like also what James mentioned, they have their own strengths, they have their own special interests too, and many have strengths in like a diverse range of aspects, like languages, writing, memory, math, and science, and many more. And I'm one of those whose special interest is in languages and writing. But anyway, so I was fortunate that I actually have like met many family and friends who have been supportive of my strengths and aspirations. But I feel that it's ultimately up to us to appreciate the strengths of people with special needs, not just autism in general, so that the people with special needs themselves, they can learn to appreciate and embrace these strengths too.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. Ray, can we maybe share a link later of your article that you published in Taobao? Maybe some of our Mandarin, or it can be translated as well to the non-Mandarin speaking teachers because Ray wrote a really beautiful poetic review, right? It was a review of the play that you watched and was published in Taobao recently.
Yes, but where do I send the
Yeah, it's okay. I'll get it from you later, and then we'll share it in the school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So again, another good point about really looking at strengths because James also is really talented in Irish music as well as Rubik Cube as well, right? But going on to Emily, last but not least, sharing with us maybe some of the misconceptions that you've come across about people with dyslexia.
Right. So for me, the biggest misconception that people have is that people with dyslexia cannot read. So there was when I was applying for university and going through the interview process, one of the interviewers, which was a professor in the school, when she heard that I was diagnosed or have dyslexia, she asked me in a very concerned way, can you even read? And that to me was wow, it really, struck a chord in me because I've been talking to you for an hour about all the things that I've done in poly and everything else, and that was the thing that you were most concerned about was that as a dyslexic person, you think I cannot read. So and the point I want to bring across is that this professor was an educated person. She's a teacher, she's a lecturer, and if she has this misconception about people with dyslexia, what more do, normal common people have, the stigma that they have against us. So there's so much more that we can do to advocate for people with dyslexia and other learning disabilities. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Emily. That actually reminded me of something that Ray shared previously about his interview for the MOE sponsorship. So his was actually a very positive experience. I think, Ray, you mentioned that you did tell them that you were diagnosed with autism, but they focused on your abilities and your strengths and what you could do. Was it?
Okay, like just to clarify, it's not during the interview itself. It was actually because I had to fill in an application for the sponsorship. And on Google Form, they actually told me to declare any conditions that I may have.
Yeah, right, which you did. But during the interview, did they ask you about it?
No, they didn't.
Okay. Yes. So I thought that was nice in a way that the focus of the interview, wasn't on how is autism going to affect you and so on, but they really focus on the qualities that's going to make him a good teacher. Yeah. Okay. The third question I have is really about a teacher in your lives that, it could be more than one, a teacher that made a difference and really helped you to cope when you were a student, right? So maybe we start with Ray this time. Yeah.
Well, I would say that there are a lot of examples with teachers who saw my personal strengths, really. But there was one special example. It was my humanities teacher in secondary school. She taught me both in social studies and geography, which was the stream that I was in secondary school. And when I was preparing for my O-levels, I was actually working hard to buck up on many of my weaker subjects. Yeah, because my results weren't that satisfactory during that time. However, during my prelims, I did not do well for my humanities subjects as expected, which I was actually really dejected because of it. But despite the little improvement to my grades, my humanities teacher, she actually sent me a text. She instead said that I improved in my attitude towards my studies. It was something which I then realized it really moved me and encouraged me to continue working hard to enter into my current course, which in fact is closely related to the weaker subjects that I had in secondary school. But as time went by, yeah, I think maybe I was inspired by this teacher. So humanities became my strength, and I gradually gained more interest in language, culture, literature, and history, which fueled my passion to teach mother tongue, because that was all that I had learned, all that I've learned so far in Chinese studies. And this passion actually also motivated me to be a citizen translator. So I'm actually a citizen translator under the National Translation Committee, SG Translate Together as well. And yes, I have submitted translation errors and done translation tasks on the SGTT portal.
Wow. Thanks, Ray. I think that really brings home the point about how much power a teacher's words can have, So sometimes we think of as a teacher, maybe we're thinking of what are the big things that we can do, but then sometimes the smallest act. So in Ray's case, it was just a text message of encouragement from a teacher that really, helped to motivate you and encourage you towards your goals. Yeah. How about James? Was there a teacher that was very helpful to you in your schooling days?
In terms of the actual journey and the nurturing process, I think in general the opening of my mind throughout all of the years in the education system, every single teacher, for both the positives and the negatives, a part of my formative experience. So I don't have a single individual. However, I was bullied when I was in Polytechnic. That was in 2010. And even then I still had I still didn't know what was going on, but I knew that I was being bullied, so I approached one of the instructors in the film and media studies school in Nyan, because my diploma was under them, and the case was handled by by one of them in charge of discipline, and the case was decisively handled. And I actually went to the school and looked for her after I was diagnosed 7 years later, and I thanked her personally. And I think that's one of the things. That's really the thing.
Yes. So the teacher actually took it seriously, the case of you being bullied, and you felt was handled well. Right. Yeah. Thanks for that, James. Maybe how about Kai? Was there a teacher that inspired you or really helped you to cope better?
I think definitely there were a lot, especially in my JC time. I remember, I think simple things that teachers did were stuff like always asking us, making sure that we answer questions in class. So, they kind of like, would make sure that everyone had a chance to like speak up, even if you were like lacking behind and stuff, to try and come up with an opinion, and also kind of like offer endless kind of like, they were very nice to offer like, a lot of like consultations after class. Because for me, I think a lot of times I couldn't really focus in class, but when I had that kind of opportunity to ask questions one-on-one or consult them after class, it really helped to boost my understanding of whatever topic that was being taught. Yeah, so that was definitely very helpful. I also had teachers who really kind of like went out of their way, and this wasn't like particularly just for learning disability, but just in general, like for the entire class, all my classmates as well. Yeah, and like one teacher would like just come like sit us down and just ask us, "Oh, what do you do? What you do?" And it's like, "Why do you come to school every day? Why do you study for what? Why do you do all these things?" Yeah, and I think it's just like a 17, 18-year-old kind of like asking ourselves these questions for like the first time. Yeah, there were like even some of my classmates would like start crying and stuff like that. But it was very good, yeah, experience in all this stuff. Because like they actually taught us how to get more drive. So that's something that I really kind of like had to credit my teachers as well, in terms of like being able to drive us to want to find our own motivation to study hard and score well as well. So I think once we had that, once I had that as well, it was a lot better to try to do as well as I can in school.
So guiding you all to find your own drive and motivation within you, and also being very generous with their time in terms of consultations of the class, right? Emily, how about yourself? How was your experience and teachers that really helped?
Right. I think before even talking about the teachers that really impacted me, I think it's important to set the scene first. So all throughout primary school, I always had a very bad experience because I've always been called like stupid or like lazy. And there was even one teacher who told me that I'll be surprised if you can even make it to secondary school. And all this time, all the teachers never believed in me, never thought I was smart enough to excel or even progress on to the next chapter. But when I was finally diagnosed with dyslexia, I went to extra classes at the Dyslexia Association, and that's when, finally a teacher told me, her name was Miss Phoebe. She said that failure isn't your whole life, but it is a part of your life. So you'll get through it and you'll overcome it. And for the first time, I felt like a teacher really believed in me and was really willing to help me overcome my learning disabilities. So she really helped me. She really sat down and started trial and error about the different learning methods that best suit my learning abilities. So I think then on, when I started, understanding myself a little bit more, I was able to then share with my teachers, like in secondary school and in poly, like, hey, I have dyslexia, but these are the ways that I learn best in. So if we could do it together, I would really, appreciate it. And that's when teachers really started understanding me and supporting me. So I think the point I want to tell all of you teachers here is that you guys are all teachers, and I know you care about your students, and you have the power, to make a difference in your students' life. So, really be there for them and support them, like how, all of our teachers supported us and empower us too.
Yeah, thanks for that, Emily. I mean, that's such an important message for teachers. I see James clapping for you as well. Yeah, and you touched on kind of the next question that I wanted to ask also. So definitely there will be teachers that made a difference in our lives and so on, but there could also be teachers who maybe have done something not as helpful. And a lot of times it's not that they set out to do it, but it just happened perhaps due to lack of awareness and things like that, right? So were there also things that you think maybe the teachers did or said that wasn't very helpful? So in Emily's case, I think she shared about, teachers maybe making assumptions and labeling you in a negative way. How about yourself, Ray? Was there any time where the teacher did something that you felt wasn't very helpful and maybe, something like a don't do for teachers?
Okay, just before I answer that question, so I just sent the link of the Zaobao article and the English translation as well.
Great. Okay, we will
Yeah.
share that.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
going on to the question, actually, I would say I'm a bit different. I did not have much of this experience. If I were to give one example, I say it's a good example, was my secondary school A math teacher. Because she would compare students who are faring better in the subject to those who are weaker or perhaps like very poor in the subject as well. I felt slightly uncomfortable because of this, especially when my results back in secondary school, they were often inconsistent. And that was also one of the challenges I had academically in school. But as I actually did not do as well as expected during my Sec 4 mid-years and prelims. So like I previously mentioned, I was often dejected. And I continued working hard to revise all of my weaker subjects. While prepping for my O-levels, actually, I've been coming to my A-math teacher for questions. I remember there was this one time in class, I went to her for questions, and another classmate who was struggling in the subject, she also came forward. But instead, this teacher actually chided him. She remarked, "Look at Ray. He's been coming to me for questions and has been putting in a lot of effort. And what about you?" But I say I could sense that she may be like naggy and less friendly as a teacher. She may also like label those who are very poor in the subject and so on. But as long as you put in effort, she will recognize it and encourage you from there. Yeah, but in a bit of a different way.
Sure. Thanks, Ray. And maybe the part about what not to do could be the direct comparisons of results you said, which may make certain students feel bad. Kai, how about yourself? Were there things that you think maybe a teacher should not do?
I think for me, I was quite lucky. I didn't really experience too much of this in JC. In secondary school, I think there were a few teachers that were still a bit not very understanding. But I think, yeah, I think in general, like, one thing that helped me also was that the teachers, they didn't really sort of like try to discriminate or ostracize me as well. And they were also, always very inclusive. Yeah, it was always more about like, okay, like if you're not doing well, then like what's the solution now, rather than to kind of like focus on the issue at hand. Yeah, so they kind of like never let it be a limiting factor for me. I never kind of like saw it as a limiting factor. So I think in that sense it was very nice because they didn't kind of like focus like, oh, okay, like like since you like it's okay, like you have this, like it's okay if you don't do well, that kind of thing. But really it was just more of like, oh, okay, like if you're not doing well, then what do we do now? Like what are the things that you can do to improve yourself?
Yes. So again, you felt that there was belief in you, right?
Mm.
Yeah. James, how about yourself? Anything that you think that teachers should not do because it's not very helpful?
Well, I think for that point, I would just go back to addressing misconceptions. And one misconception is that autism is a mental illness. Sorry, autism is not a mental illness. And I think that teachers, please be educated on the best practice and actually the autistic people led uh, uh, narratives on how we should see autism and how we should see autistic people. I think back in 2005, that was in secondary two, I think shortly after I had a meltdown in the middle of the school. I found out through a friend, I think about 10, 17 years after the fact, as we were reminiscing about our earlier years. But that actual time, I was told that my form teacher actually had sit down with my class and told them that I had a mental illness. In particular, I had a bipolar disorder, something that I was never diagnosed for. I had never seen a doctor for it or an NOA psychologist. And that teacher never even sat down to even say that to me or to even ask if I had it.
Thanks, James. Yeah, so I think that again is a common theme that has come up, the use of negative labels, right? So just be careful about the labels. Earlier, Emily mentioned about, terms like lazy, stupid, mentally ill, and things like that. Yeah, so just to be more mindful and, to avoid using this negative labels. Yeah, I think, as an ex-teacher myself, I know that teaching can be very frustrating sometimes, and sometimes, it's really us managing our own emotions as well. Yes, now I'm just mindful of time, so I'm going to go on to we have until 9:30, am I right? Just to check, Robin. 9.
Actually, we can end at about near 10 is all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
In that case, I will, yeah. So, the next question actually is about bullying, which I think some of you have already alluded to as well. But maybe just to share a little bit about, with the perspective of what do you think teachers can do, right? In terms of, addressing if they do see a student, maybe being socially excluded or being bullied, because nowadays bullying is not so obvious, like, throwing a punch in your face kind of thing. Sometimes it's just, nobody wanting you to be in their project group, for example, social exclusion and things like that. Yeah. So any thoughts about bullying and maybe with the role that teachers can play? Maybe we start with Emily.
Right, okay. So I think for bullying wise, last time in primary school, I asked my friend who was doing really well in math, like, oh, could you let me know your math tuition teacher name? Because I also want to have extra classes after school. And then she told me, oh, my math teacher don't teach stupid people one, so I don't think I should give you her number. And I was like, the very fact that I want tuition is because I'm not doing well in school. And you know what? It's okay, never mind. And I think at that point of time, I was already like semi giving up on myself already because I felt not only were my teachers saying mean things about me, but also my classmates too. So, um, I think after being diagnosed, I realized that what really helped me was the extra classes after school that my teacher provided. Because I think being in a big class and teaching, you have to teach the curriculum like quite quickly and doing the exercises after class. I think for me what really worked was when my teacher gave me like extra classes after school about like half an hour to an hour, just going through slowly what was not clear to me. And then addressing the questions that I may have, or even the questions that I don't know that I have in the first place, because you don't know what you don't know until you actually talk about it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Another thing that was really helpful that the teachers did was that they also started, pre-recording a little bit about their lectures before the lecture started. So at least I have some like background knowledge. And not only that, but the extra materials that they say that, okay, so this is the pre-lecture. So here are some resources that you can go out and read before coming to my lecture. So that gave me some time to actually slowly read through and understand before coming to class even. So that for me was really helpful.
Yes, thanks for sharing that, Emily. So more helpful tips maybe that teachers can pick up in terms of the little things you can do that will really help the student. How about you, Kai? Any thoughts about bullying or things that the teachers could do?
I think I'm quite lucky to not have experienced it firsthand through my schooling life in a very significant way in terms of bullying. But I think that I have definitely seen stuff like that being carried out, and I think definitely was a bit more prevalent in secondary school. And then once it came to JC, yeah, the kind of bullying also changes a little bit, right? It can be a bit more uh, psychological, it can be a bit more of exclusion and stuff like that. And I think at this point, it's maybe just quite important to look out um, for such people who may be facing such an issue by having a peer support structure, having other friends to look out for you. So I think one thing that really helped for me, just in general in school, was like having friends and people to support me in terms of like whether it was like studying or together and stuff like that. And I think like looking out for people who you may suspect be facing such a issue. I think also like one thing also is because there's such a broad category of learning disabilities. There are also those which are visible and those which are more invisible. So I think they vary in terms of like how identifiable it is as well. Because I mean, when it comes to like dyslexia, you may not know that someone has dyslexia until you actually see the person's handwriting or work, and then maybe start to suspect something. But when it comes to maybe like other forms of like learning disabilities, it may be a bit more apparent in terms of the social facing kind of interactions you may see. And I think these are where you may also want to watch out for bullying as well, in terms of like also being able to see how like other classmates respond. Because I think like what Emily shared, once you feel that sense of being put down by your peers, it can be just as bad or even worse as when your teachers do it to you. So I think that's something equally concerning as well. But having maybe like a peer support structure will be very beneficial to that individual.
Yes, thanks for that. Yeah. How about James? Would you like to share your thoughts about bullying and maybe the role that teachers could play?
So I've already shared about bullying, much of the specifics in my first point. So I think I need not go into that again. But I think if we look from the ecological perspective, a la Bronfenbrenner, you realize that one of the biggest things is culture and the underlying belief of the larger population that our children are embedded in. Once again, especially when we talk, so we are looking at JC, so maybe not as bad, but at the secondary level, when it's at that very crucial formative year, I mean, they all are, but especially in secondary school where the age range, the social pressures, people wanting to be somebody, all of the whole growing development storm that we talk about, right? And and then children picking on those who are not like them, and I think that this is probably the hardest thing out there to deal with. It's not just about putting them into a special school and then closing two eyes, one eye. It's not just about punishing the bullies, punishing the autistic, punishing the special student. It's not about rules. It's not about negative reinforcement. It's about the culture, and I think that's probably mission impossible to most of us. And I think that there's a long road ahead of us. I think the first step would be that firstly, people with I think that many of our their peers, they respect people who have direction in their lives and who are able to have something to show for their accomplishments in their schooling years. I think that any effort to inculcate a sense of direction, a sense of purpose, and ambition, whether it's academically or in terms of CCA, would be something to work with in both sides of the student population. I
Yeah.
think that when the more that that students with special needs or disabilities are put into positions of leadership, into that we can set them up for success, and they're able to demonstrate it tangibly, channeling their enthusiasms and interests in the right way, providing them the opportunities and resources.
Yeah.
I think that will go a long way into squashing misconceptions and building respect between both sides.
Yeah, yeah. James, I completely agree with you, that bullying is really a systemic issue and it needs to be treated as such. And, I think oftentimes we treat it as a one student problem. Oh, that's a bully, let's punish the bully. But actually research also shows that, it's very short term, right? So that's not actually a sustainable solution. And we really need to work towards that inclusivity in terms of culture shifts, which, as James pointed out, is of course a lot harder than just punishing one student. But I think it's something that we all need to be mindful of and we all need to work towards. And great suggestions there, in terms of maybe giving them leadership positions, the teacher role modeling that respect and that acceptance for different students as well. Yeah. How about you, Ray? Any thoughts about, what the role that teachers can play where bullying is concerned?
The whole situation improved after I entered secondary school, and I am fortunate to have made a lot of good friends from secondary school as well. But if I would say about what teachers can do to address this is that actually when I entered secondary school, from secondary school and beyond, I noticed that more teachers have been teaching about inclusion and persons with special needs as well, which was a good sign, which was something that I'm really quite grateful for. So I feel that actually teachers can incorporate inclusion and awareness for persons with special needs in their curriculum, perhaps in CCE or pastoral care or class time, these few periods, to raise awareness. And also because persons with special needs have varying abilities. So I would just bring another Chinese saying. It is also very important to 因材施教, which is to recognize the strengths and abilities of neurodivergent students and to improvise the teaching content based on the personalities and standards of these students, so that they aren't so overwhelmed or not feel like their potential is not being seen by others. And if needed, like what Emily mentioned, is that extra classes or consultations may be needed if these students still have some doubts they want to clarify and so on.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. So it's really important for teachers to recognize their strengths as well, right? Not just what they can't do, but really looking at what they can do. So I think that's a perfect lead into our last question, really. If there was one thing that you think is really important for teachers to know or to do for neurodivergent students in their classes, what would that be? Shall we start with James? Would you like to go first?
Right. I think I shall address this point by addressing another misconception, and it's that people with special needs are dangerous people who tend towards criminal behavior. I can quote you a journal article from the Journal of Psychology that shows that people with special needs, people with autism, and in particular, are more likely to be the victims of abuse and crime rather than the perpetrators thereof. I think that that all people should be accountable for their actions. People with disabilities can engage in criminal activity, and so do people without. And there are obviously behavioral indicators amongst people, which could suggest. I'm not a direct expert here, so I'll just put it like that. But then I think that maybe we shouldn't assume that just because a child has behavioral issues means that they are suspicious characters to be taken seriously as potential perpetrators of rule-breaking or criminal behaviors in schools. I think that more importantly, students who exhibit challenging behavioral issues should be followed up for more decisive behavioral intervention. Like for me, I fell through the crack. I was surrounded by misconceptions of my own, of the family around me, my teachers. So nobody put me up for the right treatment, the right attitudes, and the right interventions. Thankfully, we are in a better situation now than then. But I think that sensitivity and better training and understanding of these things would be better. And I just give me about a minute more. I've got one last point to share. I think most of us, I believe that from the briefing, most of you here are teachers. And I think some of you have an interest to become administrators, HODs, principals, vice principals, administrators in the MOE. I think that moving forward, we have to address one thing. Should we put all of the students with behavioral or special issues of special needs into special schools and then close shop? Or do we include and integrate every single one of them in the mainstream system? I think we have strong voices who support both sides and bat each other for disagreeing with them. Personally, I think that we should. I believe in a multimodal system where we provide as many options for all situations, because obviously I think some children may not have the behavioral and profile that could be best handled by the resources and teachers of a certain school. In that case, I think that as society marches onwards towards inclusion, I think all the more we should start to embrace more decisive action and where we really sit down with the parents and to say, you know, your child is struggling in mainstream school. I think it's better that we put them in a special school like Pathlight, whatever, where they might thrive better, rather than forcing them to be integrated into mainstream school. And once again, we do not assume one size fits all for every child, whether it's behavioral, a special needs base, or some other challenge that our youth face. We should approach every single individual in a proper case-by-case basis. And yes, here for me, that I do believe that horses for courses, and we should really provide every option available out there for the greater success of all of our students.
Yes, I think, James, what you mentioned is, to my knowledge, quite consistent with MOE's current policies, really to provide different pathways for different students as well. Yeah. Okay, let's go on to maybe Ray, you want to go next? What's one thing that, one thing that you think is really important for teachers to know or do for their students?
Yeah, so like just to repeat just to bring back to my point on the previous question. So yes, it is important for teachers to recognize the strengths and abilities of neurodivergent students, because I remember although I had a different social pathway than many others, I had been through feeling inferior. I remember during my secondary school graduation, really, my form teacher, she made a card and she actually wrote for me a quote, an inspiring quote from Moana. She actually mentioned sometimes the strengths lie beneath the surface. And perhaps she recognized the strengths. I think she really recognized the strengths which perhaps other classmates didn't have. So it's something that I appreciate. And sometimes I feel like the students may feel like demoralized or inferior. There's a possibility of that happening because of his or her condition, or perhaps differences because of it. However, like recognizing the strengths and traits of a student can be beneficial to raising his or her confidence and not feel so bad. And like what I experienced during my secondary school graduation. So I also feel that teachers can perhaps find inspirational quotes for their classes, and probably during special events, probably they can also like plan like for example acknowledgement to other classmates during class time or CCE. so so that other classmates have the opportunity to write words of encouragement for other classmates. And that was actually what I have been through in secondary school, in upper secondary. So I'm really grateful for that. And teachers can also like regularly check on their students or pull students out and have a word with them so as to find out like if they face any problems in school. And I feel that these actions can from time to time it will help neurodivergent students feel at ease as well. I would say that there may be like more ideas than these. Yeah, but to be honest, like I would say there are more ideas, but these are the ones which jolted into my mind. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And I suppose quite feasible as well, in terms of the peer support, like you mentioned, getting peers to write encouraging words to each other and having those one-to-one check-in sessions where possible, right? How about you, Kai? What would be, one key message you want to share?
I think for me, and similar to what some of the rest have already shared also, it would be to simply just make them feel not like they're less than anyone else. Yeah, and really just, I think get them to also maybe realize that everyone has their own certain set of like strengths and weaknesses. Learning disabilities can be at times like something more they struggle with. It can be something that helps you even to do like other things that you may be naturally better at because of the disability that you have as well. So it works, I think it works both ways, right? In a sense. And likewise, like other students who may not have learning disabilities also struggle with different things as well. And I think like one thing that really helped me was like, yeah, my teachers never really saw me as like anything less for my learning disabilities as well. And yeah, they to them it wasn't really like about harping on it, like, oh, like, okay, like you have this condition, like you're probably not going to do very well and stuff. It's never really about that, but really just about like, okay, like if you're not doing well, then so what? What are you going to do about it? Um, you want to have more consultations, you want to, do work longer than everyone else. And I think once like you kind of like recognize that, then you can kind of see it as not focus like on the label of like being neurodivergent, but just focus on the end result of what you want to achieve instead.
Yes, well said. Thank you. And Emily, how about you?
For me, I think one key thing that I would like all you teachers to know is that to care for us, to talk to us, and to never give up on us, like how you never give up on your loved ones. Because I think as teachers, you go through many batches of students, you meet so many students, but as students, you are our only one teacher that we meet and encounter. So the things that you do really leave a big impact on us. And I think no, all of us here are quite privileged to actually be diagnosed and to actually seek help and get the help that we need. but some students may not be so fortunate to actually be diagnosed and to know that they have a learning disability. So as teachers, if you realize that you see a student that's struggling a little bit in class, maybe you can pull them aside, talk to them, like ask them like, hey, is there something that I can help you with, like meet their needs. And because I guess for me as a nurse, I care for so many patients. And despite that, I always tell myself that I should always look after and care for my patients like how I care for my grandparents. Because like I love my grandparents so much, and I too want to care for my patients like my grandparents. So same for you guys, care for your students like how you would care for your own child and never give up on them.
Sorry, Dr. Vin, mind if I can just add on to that? That's exactly what I said. Thank you, Emily. But once again, parents are still a stakeholder in these things, and it's very hard. And I know that sometimes connecting our children in schools to the right interventions is very difficult, especially when there's pushback. But I personally don't have all the answers to that as well. But I think that we should continue with that. We shouldn't stop. I think that's the single best thing that could happen, where they get the right help they need. So yeah.
Yes, yes. So James, you're alluding to the fact that actually parents play an important role as well, right? Together with the teachers. Yeah. Thank you so much, all of you. I mean, I'm sure, teachers, you probably share my thoughts as well, that was really, really helpful and enlightening, listening to our 4 ambassadors today. So while we're getting the questions in, and maybe Robin can share the questions shortly.
Quite a number of teachers messaged us and really wanted for us to share with you all how powerful and meaningful when all of you share your very personal and vulnerable stories. It was so touching. So one teacher actually messaged me and said that when she was listening to some of your stories, there were tears in her eyes, and really thank you so much, the resilience that you have shared. Special shout out for Emily from 2 of the teachers. What you shared was very meaningful and touching for us. And also to Ray, you made us realize that it is in all these small little things that we can do to really minister and reach out to our students, regardless of their situation, And thank you so much, James and Kai, for being so authentic, so vulnerable, and so encouraging at the same time. I will message the questions to Vivian, and then if you could really help us, to answer that question so that we can become better teachers. Some of the questions are really specific. For example, I think just now Emily was mentioning about some of the strategies that you learned that was helpful for you. Maybe you could also share with us in that email, in your reply, what were these strategies that teachers could adopt to help students with dyslexia, for example. So we'll email the questions to you all. I understand that my principal is here. Yeah,
Yeah, hi,
Cecilia.
hi.
Yeah,
Hi,
so we
Vivian and our volunteers. I think it's really, really very commendable and very brave for all of you to share your own personal experiences. As Vivian has pointed out, actually, it's a journey that our school system is going through, and I think we are, as James has actually ascribed to, we are actually in a much better position than probably 10, 15 years ago. And I will just share before this session that our PM Lee, he's stepping down now as a Prime Minister, but when he took up the mantle to be Prime Minister, his first National Day rally speech was about being an inclusive society. So it took us 15 years to get to where I think there's still more that we need to do. So as part of also, of course, our college and support for the students with various neurodiverse needs is also number one, gaining awareness as well as building the capacity and empathy, very important, right? To understand the challenges faced by various groups of students and how we can collectively as a community, not just the teachers themselves, but also with the college mates and the student body come in to provide a kind of a supportive environment. So I was just also sharing the teachers that last week we do have a group of student leaders who took up the initiative to actually invite Enable SG to also come in and talk to them about the various neurodiverse needs of the students and how we can actually see some of these signs and also support them. So this is a journey again for us at the JC scene. We will be constantly needing the help and support from also the various community to also see how we can sharpen and some of the tools and help to also raise awareness along this level. So thank you very much, right, for your very generous sharing. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Sin. I think the fact that the school reached out to us is such a great sign as well. We were so happy, that it really shows the interest in this area and the willingness to really learn and to hear from people with neurodiversity. I know that a lot of teachers have probably done a lot of workshops and so on, but oftentimes we hear that nothing like hearing lived experiences.
Yes, yeah. And also nothing beats doing it on the go, as I think some of you have pointed out. Every neurodiverse student is very different. There's no one size fit all. So the trial. So I think giving our teachers the space and understanding also, sometimes you may not get everything right because every neurodiverse child is really very different. So we do make mistakes along the way, but do give us that space to also point out certain things that we can also learn and grow ourselves as well. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. And thank you all of you for making time. Yeah.